there was a few things I wanted to cover, and one was something really interesting I learned thanks to a couple of people that commented on this video that published about sunflowers and why I grow them. And I didn't know this until a couple people said the same thing, that sunflowers are really good for detoxing your soil, pulling the heavy metals out of your soil. I'm like, really? So instead of just trusting one or two people's word for that, I decided to do a little looking into it. And sure enough, I found all kinds of sites that they weren't just, random blogger sites. So we're talking about science, more scientific, plant related sites, garden related sites, something that's very specific to that kind of thing. And sure enough, I found out sunflowers do help to detox your soil. So all the more reason why I am so thrilled that this year, when I planted my sunflowers, I didn't just kind of stick them in one area in the main garden. I planted them all throughout the whole main garden. Well, I've done that before, but this year I did that even more so, planted some out front in the front yard garden, and then some along the gate or the fence where we just started a new garden area. And so I'm like, that is so cool. So now I'm like so thrilled that I planted them more around in different garden areas. So not only will they add more beauty to my garden, give me more sunflowers, they're going to help to detox that soil. And so that was really, really exciting news. And thanks to the people that shared that with me. I appreciate that. And then another thing was about sexing chickens. Some of you may have some experience in this, but like somebody did make the comment that, oh yeah, somebody showed me how you can tell the difference in the sex of a chick, chicks, baby chicks, by the way their wing feathers are. Well, I'm here to tell you, while there is truth to that, it's going to vary by chicken. So if you have all these different breeds of chickens, or you have mixed breed chickens, it's really not an accurate way to go about it. And here's the other thing. When I was researching this last year, because I'm like, okay, how can I tell the difference with chicken wing feathers? I found information that went both ways. Like one said the shape of the wing goes like this if it's a male, and like this if it's a female. And then another site or another YouTube video would say absolute opposite. And I'm like, well, this isn't helping one darn bit. And I looked into everything I could. And then I found some information that said it really depends on the breed of chicken. I'm here to tell you, all of my chicks, all their wing feathers looked exactly the same. Exactly. They all had the little smaller feathers here. They all had the same shape. Yet still, more of them were roosters than there were hens. Okay, so very unreliable system. The most reliable, accurate way to be able to sex your chicks is you got to have some experience. And I'm still too nervous to do this. I kind of tried, but you got to do a vent check. But you have to be very careful because you can hurt them if you're not careful. And in the vent, you got to carefully open up the vent. And if you see a little bump in there, then you'll know it's a male. No bump, it's a female. Like I said, I tried and I was too scared that I was going to hurt them. And so I'm like, you know what? I'll be able to tell when they get older. And I'm not going to want to take them out until they're older anyway. And just with my third hatching, I'm getting an experienced enough eye. I can tell by demeanor. I can tell by the way their combs and wattles on the males do start developing faster and turning red faster. I can tell by the size. I can tell by the beefiness of their legs and feet. They're just overall, I mean, they're all the same size when they're first hatched out, but they hit this one point where the males will start getting bigger than the females. But yeah, their demeanor for sure. The males definitely like to fight each other. But so I wanted to cover that. So don't assume that if you watch somebody's one person's video on sexing chicks. I've even seen the one where if you like pick them up a certain way and depending on how they hang, it'll depend on the moment how they behave when you do that. And that doesn't work either. I'm here to tell you. So I'm just like, whatever. It is what it is. And I'm going to want to wait till they're big enough to where the roosters are going to have enough meat on them before I take them out. Another question I had was in relation to what are my favorite fabrics to use in making my skirts. So this can be patchwork skirts or solid skirts like I'm wearing most of the time. I'm either wearing brown or black. So today is black. My favorite fabrics are either 100% cotton or 100% linen. Linen, if you're buying linen, you want to go for, if you're making a patchwork skirt or these very full skirts like I like, you're going to want to go with a medium to medium lightweight. You don't want to get too heavy or the skirt's just going to be too heavy because it's so much fabric. But if you get it too lightweight in the linen, it's going to be see-through. Unless you're going to make some kind of slip to wear under it. The patchwork won't usually be such a big deal, but yeah, you just got to be careful, especially if it's a light colored. It's going to be more see-through. That's the two I like to use, 100% cotton, 100% linen. Now, I have yet to make a patchwork skirt out of linen, and I don't know that I will. But, just because of the expense of it. The only thing I don't like about linen is it is so much more linty than cotton. It's like I am constantly, ever since I started making myself these linen skirts, constantly have linen dust bunnies all over the place. We're constantly having to sweep up linen dust bunnies. It gets better. It gets less and less the more I am wearing and washing those skirts. So that's the only thing I don't like. But other than that, linen is probably my favorite. It breathes so nicely. I still am wearing a skirt with my linen, whatever you want to call them, pantaloons, knickers, whatever, that I made to wear under my skirts, even on hot days, because the linen breathes so well, I don't get too hot. And I still like having that added layer underneath my skirts for just modesty, because a lot of times I'm having to pick up my skirts when I'm out in the garden, and I might not think of it, if I'm out in the front yard garden and my legs are covered. I don't have to worry about accidentally exposing something or climbing up and down ladders. I'm constantly up and down, mostly just step ladders, but still. Okay, one more thing I wanted to say. I had somebody send me an email asking me some questions, and they were questions that I didn't really know the answer to. And usually most cases, if somebody sends me a question that I don't have an answer to because I haven't done a video on it, or if I had done a video on it, I'll link them to a video. But if it's something I just don't know because I haven't looked into it, I just say, I really don't know the answer to that question. So you'll have to do a little research on that yourself. Because a lot of times I just don't have time to then stop and do the research right then for somebody. I've got enough other stuff going on. And so I told them, well, here I can give you this information. And one of the things they had said, though, hey, Jax, please be quieter than that, was that they had asked AI. I'm coming back to the AI thing because I think this is really important. First of all, I absolutely have this aversion to AI. And it's getting so frustrating where it's like you go to watch a video that sounds really interesting. It could be a historical thing. Everything in it is AI, including the voice. And it's saying things wrong. It's making mistakes. I hate that. I want real stuff. I don't mind a couple of AI generated images to help when someone's trying to get something specific. Maybe they can't find exactly what they're looking for, but most of the time, no. And to ask AI questions, no, don't do it. And here's the reason why. Well, let alone the fact that I think we need to really be careful about becoming dependent on AI. I've seen, and I looked it up again to see if it was still wrong. When I was looking at, just to make sure, so I've shared this before about the 4 jars lids and how they are 100% made in China, but it's really hard to find that information. And I had heard years ago that that they had planned on, having their own factory here in the United States. They're a U.S. small family-owned business, so they say. Right now, their lids are made in China. They're eventually going to have the lids made here in the U.S. I notice more and more they stop talking about anything made in the U.S. They don't even say whether or not they're made in China. If you go to their webpage, I decided before I even said anything about it, let me make sure that they haven't yet built a factory here in the U.S. because maybe they have. And I want to I want to check before I say something that's incorrect. So I go to their website to find even less information about whether or not their lids are made in China. In fact, I found in their FAQ section, it says who makes these lids. And all they do is go on and talk about how their answer, you can check this out for yourself. Go to 4 Jars USA, even though it says USA. There's also a 4 Jars Canada site. That's the only reason it says that. And if you go down to their FAQ section, you'll find a question. I just looked at it again like yesterday, a day before, that says, who makes these lids? Read the answer. It doesn't answer that question at all. It doesn't answer who. It doesn't answer where. But if you just glanced at the answer, you would see USA in there and go, oh, made in the USA. But that's not what it says. What it's telling you is that people all over the USA just love their lids. Basically is what it says, okay? Now, let's come back to the AI thing. So when I was trying to look up this information to find out, are they made in the USA yet? The stupid AI thing, the Google Assist or whatever it is that pops up at the top, said right there, I tried asking the question 2 different ways. Are they made in China? Another time, are they made in the USA? And in both occasions, the AI said they are made in the USA. The second time when I said, are they made in China? They are not made in China. 100% wrong. You cannot trust AI. I checked it again just the other day. Still says the same thing. So what AI is doing is it's pulling information from various different sites and putting it in there. But what if the sites it's pulling it from are wrong? Or what if AI made the same mistake that we tend to make? If you had gone to that FAQ question and just were in a hurry and you saw USA, you'd go, okay, they're made in the USA. But you didn't actually read what it said. You'd be wrong. Because you would believe they were made in the USA when that's not what the answer said. And that's exactly what AI did. It pulled its information from different blog sites and stuff that like 2 different blog sites clearly stated they are not made in the US. They're made in China. Clearly stated that. But because it said they're not made in the USA or because of whatever, the AI read that as they're made in the USA. So how can you trust that? You cannot trust that for your information. Absolutely not. And I wasn't even trying to use it. It's just that's what would pop up. And I'm like, what? I know that's wrong. And so aside from the fact that I have a very strong issue with AI, just that one simple question alone, and it can't get it right, I wouldn't trust it for one thing, not anything. Don't trust it to give you the answer you're looking for, because it might give you an absolute opposite answer. When it comes to research, you have to vet all your information by comparing it to all kinds of different sites. I know I say this a lot, but I don't think it can be said enough, because people, when they, I had to learn this myself. You can't trust one site. So even before AI, if you just trusted one place, like I did with the calendula leaves, okay, are calendula leaves toxic? Okay, this place says they're toxic. Okay, I better stay away from them. Instead of learning how not only to compare several different sites, whether they be blog sites can be fine, but people who write blogs can be wrong too, because they might have got their information wrong. Also look at scientific sites that break down the information on this herb or whatever it is you're trying to look up. I even have used the NIH to look up benefits of different things like lavender, dandelion leaves, and more, and have found actually a lot of excellent information that matched the information I found from herbal sites, naturopathic type sites, and more. And some people assume they want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say the NIH.gov is entirely evil and wrong. Yet the thing is there's still a lot of really good information there. You just got to know how to look for it and then compare everything, cross compare everything. If you just fall for one site, it could be an honest mistake by whoever wrote that blog. But here's the other thing is you can't also trust just one wording of it. If you type in, is such and such toxic, you will pull up places that will say something is toxic. If you put in a different type of search, is such and such edible, you're going to find a bunch of places that will tell you it's edible. That's then where you got to pay attention. Okay, why is this being labeled as toxic? Why is it being labeled as edible? It's very likely that it is edible, but you got to practice caution. Or eating large quantities of this particular thing can make you sick. Or it could be that it's more specific to you got to be careful with taking this particular thing while you're on a certain medication. That might be the only reason why some people are saying it's toxic. Or it could be simply saying that something is toxic because, just like the whole scare in more recent years about eating more than 2 or 3 Brazil nuts a day is going to kill you, when it's absolutely not true. And what happens then is this thing gets exaggerated and then it gets spread, or some doctor says, I don't want you to eat more, don't eat more than 2 or 3 Brazil nuts a day, without the understanding that you're not going to get too much selenium from eating, a big old handful of Brazil nuts. You can get too much selenium by taking it in an unnatural form, even if it's naturally sourced, by taking it in the form of a supplement. Because if you're taking selenium without the proper balance of other nutrients, yes, it's going to become toxic. It can be too much for your system to handle. Same thing goes with calcium and many other types of nutrients, but in a whole food form, they are blended properly in the right amounts that they're going to balance each other out and make it highly unlikely you're going to get enough for it to become toxic within your body. So it's understanding this, and a lot of times even a really good medical doctor may not understand that because they've been told that too much selenium can be toxic, so be careful with Brazil nuts because they're high in selenium, but not being ones that they're into the medical side of it, right? And into the human body, but they're not into studying, okay, how are these properly balanced within the plant and stuff? So that's why you have to take everything and put it together and then, use a little bit of deductive reasoning and common sense and just kind of read all the different things that are being said, and you'll figure out why some things are labeled as this when they're really not, or where's this misinformation coming from, or what is the context that this particular thing is being used in, and that's going to help you to understand, and why even some people quite honestly just get something wrong, even if they're well-meaning, like I have done many times.